Good day. Welcome to the Checking the Gate podcast. I am your host, Douglas Ferguson, and today I have with me...
Hi, I'm Steve Ferguson.
My brother and esteemed colleague, fellow podcaster. Yeah, welcome back to the show.
Chaos is order yet undeciphered, Doug.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Ah. Well, now, that's good to know. Yeah.
I'm going to let you know that my vacation starts on Wednesday.
Okay.
But I'm going down to California on Thursday.
California.
Whenever I drop that reference, nobody gets it.
Idiots.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm hoping since this is a movie podcast, though, people would.
I mean, you're making the assumption that somebody's going to listen to this, but
Hi, Mason.
not even Mason.
But yeah, so on Wednesday, I'm actually doing a distributor rep gig. So what that is, for people who don't know, is that it's common in movie theaters to, on non-peak days, Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, for a distributor like Sony, Fox, Disney, to rent out an auditorium and do a screening for a film that hasn't been released yet to gauge audience reaction. Sometimes it's so close to the release date that they're not going to make any changes. They're just trying to generate buzz. Like, we had a screening of Allegiant 2 days before it opens. That's not enough time to change anything, but they want to generate buzz. That happens. Other times, it's months and months and months before the film opens, and they're looking for legitimate feedback on, and sometimes it can be quite drastic, the changes they'll make. On contract representatives, like myself, occasionally will go and gauge the audience reaction stuff. In the movie that I'll be doing, and this is actually, to be honest, this is one of the only ways I watch movies these days, ironically. Even though I work at a movie theater, if I get a distributor rep gig, it's kind of like, oh, finally I get to watch a movie. Even though technically I'm supposed to be watching the audience. Now, I'll gauge the audience reaction for sure, but I mean, like, come on, I'm going to watch the movie too.
Like, what is the audience going to do? I guess, is it for, like, the piracy issue, or just to, like, see what...
No, for reactions, because you have to plot out things like at least 10 scenes that audiences reacted the most strongly to and what the reactions were.
That seems like it's easiest with comedies, because if no one's laughing, you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
But if people are laughing along, you're like, yes, excellent.
Well,
but I think, to contrast, do you remember the 2005 King Kong by Peter Jackson?
Yeah.
Although not heavy on the laughs, there was this scene, they fall into the pit of bugs, and there's one of those, like, gross mega creatures, like, emerges from the swamp waters. Every time I did a theater check in that scene, audience reaction, like just a noticeable gag.
For sure.
And that's exactly what he was going for.
Exactly, yeah.
And that is good filmmaking.
I did a gig for Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, and that's tricky because it's a comedy on one service but a drama on another, so they wanted actually a lot of audience reactions to key scenes because they wanted to know, is it going to get the laughs, but is it also going to have the gravitas at the end? Is it
going to bring the tears?
Exactly, right? And this is important information for studios and distributors to know. This is something that they actively want, and distributor rep gigs happen all the time. We always have at least 2 a week at at International Village, and at that one theater, at least 2 a week. It happens a lot.
Actually, that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit for...
we would have at least one at Fifth Avenue a week. At least one.
Yeah, I don't remember that many when I worked at Scotiabank Theatre.
It's fairly common for us to have 3 a week.
Really?
Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday.
There must be something about that particular theater.
Yeah, well location.
It does play, it plays to a broad audience. For those who don't know, International Village... It's in downtown Vancouver, but it's just dancing that sketchier side.
Well, it's Chinatown basically as well.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like international movies, a lot of art house flicks, some blockbusters. It's really got a weird smorgasbord of films.
Oh yeah, we had this Vietnamese film last week that just tanked. But yeah, no. So the movie that I'm actually going to be able to watch is Eye in the Sky with the late Alan Rickman in it.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I'm actually interested in that one.
I saw the trailer for the first time just the other day, not knowing I was going to be repping that movie at the time, and I was like, oh, this is one that I would want to see, but, it's going to be, unfortunately, quite far down the list. But now it's literally at the top of the list because I actually do get to watch it.
Basically, you're getting paid to watch it.
Yeah, and nice you watch the trailer and you're legitimately even watching it. You know the story, but you legitimately don't know how it's going to end.
No idea.
Yeah, it's one of those finger on the button sort of film. So, Eye in the Sky. I look forward to sharing my thoughts on that one eventually.
Cool.
Yeah. God, that's another side of the movie business a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, I think there's this level of mystique and magic to the filmmaking process, but there's a lot that goes on in this distribution process that I think a lot of people don't quite appreciate.
They try to turn an art into a science, and that's hard to do.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you're ultimately dealing with art, but the business side wants the science. They want the math, they want the numbers, and this is basically an experiment, right?
Because the thing is, it's also a very expensive art.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what it comes down to, is that like the business side needs to work in order for the art side to work.
Yeah.
Because the studios got to make money somehow, and otherwise they can't fund more films.
And you got to be careful too how you are doing your screening. Like, the age-old story is when Kevin Smith, his first test screening was for Mallrats, was at Comic-Con. Yeah. You know, Stan Lee's in it, there's a lot of comic and pop culture stuff or whatever, and it went over super, super well there, but it gave a misleading impression to the distributor, right? Because, well, this isn't a general audience. You have had people who are going to Comic-Con. That's not a correct sample. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the audience that's going to go for it. Doesn't necessarily represent the broad audience that's out there. It was the same problem with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Mm.
Yeah, like it screened super well at places like Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
But then once it hit theaters, it was like, it just fizzled. Which is a shame, because it's a fun movie.
But in fact, both are fun movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can say I saw Scott Pilgrim vs. the World in theaters.
Yeah, I did too.
I guess we're Comic-Con folk. So let's get into our episode proper. Today we are talking about a film with Jake Gyllenhaal called Enemy.
You don't go to the movies, do you? I don't go out that much. Is there a reason why you're asking me this? You know, maybe you had a recommendation.
Anthony Clare, 3650 Rathburn Road.
Hello?
Good afternoon.
Hey,
No, I'm calling to speak
where
to
are you calling from?
I'm sorry. I think there's been a
Who is
misunderstanding.
this?
Okay, I'll call back later.
He looks exactly like you. What's happening?
I really don't know what you're talking about.
I think you know.
Why'd you come looking for me? I needed to know. I have some questions for you.
Who are you?
What's wrong? You're crazy.
I'm crazy!
Now, I actually think I just first heard of this movie, I think as it came into theaters, because we were both working at Fifth Avenue at the time.
Fifth Avenue in Vancouver is an art house theater. Like, well, it's advertised as an exclusive art house theater. It's not, and it's never been. Even when it was run by an art house company, when we joined Festival, they still put blockbusters in because you got to make the money. However, it is well known by the patrons and in the area as an art house theater.
There were only kind of like certain blockbusters that kind of took off there. Like the Wolverine didn't do anything.
No.
But the Hunger Games movies did.
Django did fantastic there.
Django Unchained?
Django Unchained did amazing there. Avatar did spectacularly.
But my understanding is that one of the highest grossing movies at Fifth Avenue specifically was The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel.
Oh yeah, no, that
Like,
stayed
that
a
was-
ridiculous amount of time.
And apparently it was like one of the highest performing theaters for that movie in North America.
That and Blue Jasmine as well.
Oh yeah, Blue Jasmine.
Woody Allen movies always tend to do. When I first started Fifth Avenue, I didn't recognize the vast majority of the movies, but I knew the actors, but I didn't recognize.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's sort of
I
like
started
the
there-
actors, like the movies that they're in that are lesser known. Like I guess you know how like you do one for yourself, you do one for the paycheck.
Yeah.
They played a lot of the movies where they did one for themselves.
Oh, there was one like called Get Low that had.
Get Low, wasn't that Bill Murray?
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
but like literally, you go and you're like, I haven't heard of these movies, but I know these people. Enemy fit right in with that.
Because everyone knows who Jake Gyllenhaal is.
Of course.
I mean, not everyone, but anyone like
By this point,
the majority. I think it's
yeah.
safe to say Jake Gyllenhaal is becoming more of a household name, and
He's A-list.
yeah.
Yeah, he's been nominated for Academy Awards now, hasn't he? Like, wasn't he nominated for Brokeback?
I know Heath Ledger was. Yes, supporting actor. He was nominated for supporting actor.
Did he win it?
No.
Oh, he won BAFTA.
He won the BAFTA for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, no, I would consider him an A-lister at this point. But he does straddle that line between doing big blockbusters like Everest and then doing like movies like Nightcrawler. Basically within a short amount of time. You know, ones that are like paycheck movies and ones that are very critically acclaimed.
Yeah. One of the paycheck movies I can think of is the Love and Other Drugs.
Love and Other Drugs. Prince of Persia.
Or maybe he wasn't in that for the paycheck, but in that for the Anne Hathaway.
You could argue that about Prince of Persia. Maybe he wasn't in that for the paycheck, but he was in it for Gemma Arterton.
I keep forgetting that Prince of Persia was a thing. My brain doesn't even associate Jake Gyllenhaal with that movie whatsoever, but it's probably like one of the highest budget films he's ever done. So yes, this was a project by the director. I don't know how to pronounce it because it's French Canadian.
Yeah,
right?
it's. I looked at the pronunciation. It looks like Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah,
looks
so
like,
it's not
like
Dennis. It looks like Dennis.
Yeah,
because, with one N. But Denis Villeneuve?
Villeneuve. Yeah, that's the way it looks, yeah.
Okay. I think his movie right before this, wasn't that Prisoners?
I don't know if it was the one right before it.
It was.
Oh, it was?
It was
okay.
actually the same year, apparently.
Oh.
But he got the Prisoners gig from this movie
Incendies, which did amazingly well. It's about two twins who are trying to unravel the story of their mom's life, basically. We had it at Fifth Avenue. Yeah, I didn't even get a chance to see it, but it was such an unusual-looking title. That movie, I mean, scooped up the award. That movie was so critically acclaimed and so beloved.
It was nominated, but I don't think it won for Best Foreign Language Film and for the Academy Awards. That's how far it went, which is pretty much as far as a movie that's not in English can go.
Yeah.
Cleaned up the genies, which are the, for those who don't know, basically the Canadian version of the Academy Awards. So I guess for Canadian films it's a big deal, but which doesn't mean much to anyone else.
No, because I mean it's just too bad that most Canadians tend, although it's getting better, tend not to see Canadian films. Although this past year has been kind of almost an exception, though. It was a good year for Canadian cinema.
I don't know how many people actually know that Room and Brooklyn, which were both nominated for Best Picture Oscars, were Canadian, at least co-productions. So,
whereas, like, when I think Canadian films, I think of one of the other releases, A Date with Misfortune, where it's just like special guest appearance by Nelly Furtado and George Stroumboulopoulos, and you know, is in the theaters for a week. No one watches it, is gone. That's kind of like the typical Canadian film in my mind.
All I know is that when I was in film school, somebody from Telefilm Canada came in and was saying that the scripts that are coming into Telefilm now are the best they've ever gotten. Like, they're having to turn down scripts that they were like begging for just a few years previously.
Wow.
So I feel like I think that there's becoming quite a bit of a renaissance for Canadian features, which, you know, I feel like it's about time. I feel like it's about time that we can step up our game, because there is a reputation that I think has come with Canadian films for a long time. That luckily filmmakers like Denis Villeneuve. Villeneuve. Yeah. Luckily, filmmakers like our friend here. He's defying. He's breaking through and making some A-list stuff. Like he went on to to direct Sicario, which was another big film this year. And I think it was nominated for a few.
Oh, it was definitely nominated. I think a musical score for one.
Yeah.
Which just surprised me, because I was like, you know, you look at a film like Sicario, you don't immediately think this was going to have an amazing score. Like, it just doesn't pop in your head immediately, right? Now, was Sicario a Canadian film?
No.
Or does it just have...
It is an American film, but it's just a Canadian director. But I think that he's got a good thing going on here, where he's able to kind of switch back and forth between American and Canadian productions. I guess it's kind of the same thing as Jake Gyllenhaal. Only instead of doing one for the paycheck, he's doing one big picture and then one at-home Canadian picture. Which, actually, I think it's good that he's kind of keeping his roots in Canada. I guess in case the bigger films don't pan out and he's not able to get those studio gigs, he'll always have.
You know, with the hype and the excitement around Sicario, I don't think he's got much to worry about.
No, I think he's probably going to be doing just fine. I think he's in a really good place.
So the film he did before Enemy, Prisoners, we also got that one at Fifth Avenue. That was a big deal.
That one, if I recall, it did actually perform really well. It was top of the box office.
Yeah, and it had a trailer that was instantly riveting. It was this guy abducts this kid, but you know there's not enough evidence to hold him and arrest him and stuff. And Hugh Jackman, everyone assumes that what's-his-face has the kid, and the guy's a creeper. And Hugh Jackman basically imprisons the guy to try to torture him into revealing, where the daughter is. Because she's locked away somewhere. In this case, Jake Gyllenhaal is the cop who's like, do I support this? Do I go after him? That's tough. That's tough stuff. So I've noticed now with Prisoners and Sicario that apparently Villeneuve has stolen Sam Mendes's cinematographer. Roger Deakins was DOP on both of those films.
Yeah, I guess so. Wait, which one did come first, Skyfall or Prisoners?
Well, Skyfall was 2012, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
And you were right, he didn't come back for Spectre, did he?
He didn't, no.
Well, I could only speculate as to why, but...
Well, apparently Villeneuve and Jake Gyllenhaal really liked working together, apparently, because Enemy followed right on the heels of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, although, I don't know which one was filmed first, mind you, but, they were released within a year of each other.
Yeah. Which is, fairly uncommon. Usually directors, they have a couple years between gigs, or just because it takes that long to actually make a picture. But yeah, I could see Enemy being shot on a fairly tight production schedule, so It's not too much of a surprise. Let's get into Enemy.
Sure.
But the breakdown is basically that Jake Gyllenhaal's character, or I guess, no.
Don't say that.
Even that's...
There's Adam Bell. He seems to be a history professor at a very prestigious university. He's a very anxious man. There's a lot of anxiety that he has, and he leads a very humdrum, dry life. And late one night he discovers, while watching a movie, that there's a guy who looks exactly like him in the film as a background character.
Not a little bit like him, but like exactly like him.
He watches all the films the guy is in, which is like 3. And again, looks exactly like him. Looks him up online, looks exactly like him. The man is Daniel St. Clair. Although I think his name is Anthony St. Clair, but he goes by Daniel St. Clair. I don't know why they did that. Just give him a name.
It's Anthony Clair, but his stage name is Daniel St. Clair.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And this guy lives like the life, basically seems to have the perfect life, but the two are identical, and then through circumstance wind up meeting up, but the meeting has consequences that really reach into both their lives. That's, I guess, the spoiler-free version.
Yeah, so, now, unfortunately, in order to kind of dig deeper into this film, there's a lot that's very ambiguous. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that goes unsaid. So, I think that we're just going to have to delve right into the spoilers and get to the bulk of the film, because there's a lot that...
you have to go into spoilers to analyze the film.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
I would recommend that people watch the movie first.
I think so, yeah.
Because, analysis of this nature is very, very stimulating. But then it's like, well, do I even want to watch the movie after that? Watching the movie with my wife, there was a lot of parts where the pacing is a little on the slow side. Mm-hmm. But done intentionally. Because it really draws out the atmosphere. I don't think I'll fault the movie for the pacing, but it can be a bit uncomfortable at times, which is fine, because this is an uncomfortable movie.
You can even just tell by the cover, like a giant spider dancing in Toronto on his head. One of the things that the film has going for it is this really kind of foreboding tone to it.
It's sickly as well. The filter used during filming is a sickly yellow. Yeah, it's like a smog. It's like pollution. It leaves you feeling a little ill.
Don't go into this thinking like, I'm going in for some good, clean, happy family fun.
Yeah.
It's a grim picture, and I think it doesn't bury the lead in any sort of way. So it starts off dark.
And actually, the beginning is a little misleading, because the movie opens on one of Jake Gyllenhaal's characters. I'm not even sure which one.
My understanding from what I've read is that it starts off in that club, right? In the club. It starts off with Anthony Clair.
At the Anthony Clair?
Yeah.
It could be Adam, but okay. He's in this club, and it's a fetish club, and the fetish seems to be naked women in heels crushing tarantulas. And so it's a kind of like a foot fetish club. And this is an actual factual fetish.
Oh, is it?
Naturally.
Crushing tarantulas?
Not tarantulas specifically, but women in heels crushing things is an actual fetish.
Wow.
And it starts off very, very like a lot of graphic nudity. And so at first you're watching this, you're like, oh, is this like eyes wide shut? But then the next like hour of the movie is not like that. So
it's almost intentionally jarring at first.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're also wondering, with these spiders going around, at first, what are these women doing with the spiders? There's a woman masturbating at the beginning, but naturally it's not graphic, so you don't see it, but then you see these spiders around, and you're like, what's going on. So you immediately start to feel unnerved by the whole thing. But then, by the end of it, you see that the women are just crushing them under heels. It doesn't show them crushing, but shows the shoe coming down.
Right up until the crushing moment. Yeah.
And all these guys, like all these basically middle-aged, old, white businessmen dressed, and they're just watching and they're sweating, and they're just right into it. But except for St. Clair or Belle, whoever it is, who looks a little disconnected.
He looks almost pained to some degree, like almost like it's a weight on him to be there. I just remember like it didn't seem like he was enjoying the show. It seemed like this was sort of a burden. This is all like not said. It's all pay a lot of attention, I think, in this movie to Jake Gyllenhaal's the nuances.
So then we look into the life of Adam Bell. He's a professor at a prestigious university, and it goes through a couple cycles of his day, which seems to be the same all the time, and him lecturing, interestingly, on dictatorships and on historical tragedies. And his life is so mundane. He's got a girlfriend who comes over and will have sex with him, but sometimes she's not into it, sometimes she is into it.
It seems like you don't get any sense of chemistry between them.
No.
It does seem like it's just there for the visceral, like, physical stuff, and like they just do their deed and leave to an extent.
He knows this too. You look at him; he's not satisfied with the relationship, but it also seems to be that since he's an extremely anxious guy, always shaking, always stammering. I think he acknowledges it's the best he's going to get on a level,
Like they talk, but not very often,
No.
And even when they are, he's not engaged with her. Like he's usually like looking and reading at something else when he's talking to her. It's not a comfortable looking relationship at all.
No. I mean, his apartment is sparse. His life is sparse. And then one day, out of the blue, a colleague says, "Hey, you should watch some movies." And even in the context of the movie, Adam Bell is like, "Why do you bring this up?" Sort of thing. And like Adam seems like completely like, "Why are you talking to me? Is there a movie you're thinking of? Did you see a movie recently? Why are you bringing this up?" Because the conversation almost seems like out of nowhere, which I think is done intentionally too. Because this guy just keeps pressing him about it. You watch the movies? Have you seen any movies lately?
He specifically recommends a movie called Where There's a Will, There's a Way. Mm-hmm. It's saying like, yeah, you should, I saw this, I liked it, you should check it out. And
it seems to be a sort of a schlocky, sort of hoity-toity, upper-class, romance-y sort of piece. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there in the background is a bellhop who just... Actually, he doesn't even notice it at first. He watches the movie, he's like, whatever.
He has a dream about it.
Yes, that's right. He dreams about it, and then he wakes up in the middle of the night, he's just like, wait, what? And then goes back and watches it, and sure enough, someone who looks like him is in the movie. And then from that point on, it's just sort of a man obsessed. He keeps trying to find out more and more about this guy, because he goes to the guy's website and says, well, if you want more information, contact this talent agency. He goes to the talent agency, sneaks in, then finds out the guy's address, and then is able to finally contact this actor, Daniel St. Clair, and set up a meeting. Mm-hmm. But then as soon as they start to meet, first Daniel St. Clair, is absolutely agog and shocked, and is like, well, hold on, I've got a scar here. Do you have the scar? It's not shown then, but we do find out later he does. He has the same scar. Yeah,
so it's not just a matter of somebody who looks like weirdly the same. Mm-hmm. They are exactly identical.
And then from that point on, Adam Bell wants nothing to do with him. Wants him out of the life, wants to go back to his life as normal. But now, Daniel St. Clair... Now he's obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
now what's worth noting as well is that there was a scene in which Daniel/Anthony Clare, his wife goes to the campus where Adam works. Yeah, sees Adam there and is like shocked at how similar they are, but he doesn't know that she is Daniel/Anthony's wife.
Yeah, and then she goes to call him, and he picks up. Anthony picks up on the other... Should we call him Anthony or Daniel?
He's called Anthony for most of the movie,
okay,
so we'll call him Anthony.
And shocked that Anthony picks up on the other end, and so she's shocked. So anyways, Anthony, being the hoity-toity, arrogant actor guy who we found out has had an affair at some point in the past, he stalks Adam a little bit and finds Adam's girlfriend and likes the look of her, and decides he's going to set up a scenario in which they're going to switch places against Adam's will, and he's going to be able to sleep with Adam's girlfriend. Because he can get away with it, because they're identical. He can do it.
Gets this romantic getaway with the promise that, okay, after this you'll never see me again. Mm-hmm. But he gets this romantic getaway with Adam's girlfriend, and as they are getting into it, as she notices that, it's not that he has his wedding ring on, but it's that there's like a mark, basically, where it is to show that it has been on for the most part. And she's like, you never had a ring before. So she acknowledges that it is a different person who happens to look the same.
I think she started to suspect it simply because of the way he was like, it would show every time they were together on their way to the retreat, he would be acting completely different. But I don't think like she fully realized it until she came across the wedding ring mark.
Yeah, sort of like that was the thing that made, okay, like, no, this is why he's acting weird. It's not the same guy. She demands to be brought home. As he's driving her, they're fighting, and there's a car accident. And I guess it's just presumed
they're both killed.
Yeah.
And Adam then now is in Anthony's life.
Yeah, that's right. He took his place, basically, and...
Very reluctantly, because he was upset, he was sad, he was disconnected, and then in the middle of the night he got out of the bed and he was openly weeping. He clearly didn't want to be in this position, but felt like he had no choice.
I think at first there was sort of this level of like, well, I get, like sort of an eye for an eye kind of thing. Is like, okay, well then I'm gonna go and be with his wife, and then it just sort of seemed like it wasn't like who he was, and he couldn't do it. But it seemed that his wife, I think she acknowledged that it wasn't quite the same person.
But remember, I think it was easier for her because she had already technically met him.
Yeah,
she already knew what kind of person he was.
But and she seems strangely content with the notion of it not being Anthony,
which again is almost, you could argue, cosmic justice, because Anthony had cheated on her in the past,
and he's not the one there.
Yeah, so he's up to his old tricks again, and this poor guy who, is there and is not comfortable with being there.
Then it just seems like basically, Adam is poised to take over Anthony's life. He gets a key, which I believe is the key to that nightclub thing.
Yeah, based on the conversation he had with the doorman of his building, because apparently Anthony at some point had gone with the doorman to this fetish club, because the guy couldn't. He's like, I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but I can't stop thinking about it. I hear they change the locks every time, and change the location every time. Something along those lines. So yeah, I think the key is to the fetish club.
Adam has this moment of like, I should go and see what this is, with sort of a look of acknowledgement that it may not be the right thing to do. I'd say. As he goes to talk to, I guess who is sort of his wife now. He goes into a room, and I almost don't want to say it because it's something that he kind of have to see to like. Really
but it's intrinsically related to the whole thing.
So instead of she doesn't acknowledge, so he goes into a room to see what she's up to, and instead of her, there is a seemingly frightened, gigantic tarantula.
I know, right?
in the room instead, and it backs into a corner. He looks partly surprised, but partly actually almost not surprised.
Yes, like no,
yeah.
It's not a fleeting moment where it just cuts to him and then cuts out. The camera stays on him for a period of time that's long enough for you to watch him react and continue to react a little, and it's almost a non-reaction. It's just like, it's almost like a here we go sort of thing.
Yeah, like resignation.
Yeah.
Okay. And I gotta say, everyone, that must be the biggest WTF ending I have ever seen. That's how the movie ends. It's just like this tarantula, this giant tarantula.
Yeah.
And I can't even wrap my brain around it. Like, so that's the job for today. We're going to try and wrap our brains around the giant tarantula.
I watched the movie because I was working at Fifth Avenue. I had an early morning flight to catch the next day. The theater was closer to the airport than my house was. So now, being, as I mentioned before, someone who ironically doesn't get a chance to watch a couple movies, there were two movies I wanted to see. I wanted to see Enemy, and I wanted to see The Trip to Italy. And both have relatively short run time, so I said, okay, after hours, I'm going to watch these two movies, and then I'll make my way to the airport. And so there I was, 2 a.m, in a theater, all by myself.
Steve, the arachnophobic.
The arachnophobe, watching Enemy. And this whole time, I mean, like, the atmosphere is so damn palpable, especially when you're in a big, it's not like a huge cinema, but still, you're in the big room by yourself. And then this gigantic spider, there's a minor chirp and then it backs away. I had a very visceral reaction. Instantly my skin crawled. And it was a shock. It was a bolt upright sort of thing. I mean, I didn't see it coming.
How could you see that coming?
Yeah, well, that's just it, right?
It's like, how could you?
And then, thankfully, I watched The Trip to Italy afterwards, which was a very pleasant film. So
Good order.
It's a good order.
Chose a good order.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wash this down somehow. I know. I'll watch Steve Coogan and that other guy do ridiculous impressions.
Okay, we'll have to talk about that movie sometime. I don't know if you've seen it, but that movie's great.
I've seen bits of it.
You gotta watch. Don't bother with The Trip. Have you seen The Trip?
Oh wait, actually, or is it bits of The Trip I've seen? I don't know.
The Trip to Italy is a lovely movie. But anyways, I wasn't sure, much like when I watched Scanners the first time, I wasn't sure if I liked the film or not. I found it thought-provoking and interesting, but I wasn't sure if I actually liked it.
Same here. I sort of felt like, in some ways, I initially felt really disappointed because I left the movie with more questions than answers. And I kind of feel like, hey man, like you opened up all these doors. Why didn't you like answer some of the questions? And I couldn't, like, there was so much I couldn't figure out, and it was so slow. But what I'll say about Enemy is that I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yes.
Like I couldn't get it out of my mind because it's like brain food. It's like it was so stimulating. It left my imagination to wander so much that I kind of like, even though I've still only seen it the one time, I've just grown to appreciate it more and more. I don't think that there's any way that he made this movie with the intention of it being like a mainstream success or like it like reaching a really broad audience. Like this one was one for the art house kids, you know, one for the people who really are into cinema and want to experience it in that sort of more intellectual level. So here we are.
Yeah, no kidding. And, you know, truth be told, I've made up my mind. I do really like the film simply because I saw this film like 3 years ago. Anytime anyone mentions Jake Gyllenhaal or it, I think about the film. And it was nice that you rented it because then I was able to watch it again knowing the ending and then watch it over again. And interestingly enough, as Adam Bell says himself in the film, that history repeats itself at least 2 times, according to Karl Marx, he said. First time is a tragedy, the second time is a farce. And then you watch it like that. The first time you watch this movie, it's kind of a tragedy. The girlfriend is basically essentially sexually assaulted because a stranger assumes identity of her boyfriend and then killed. And Adam Bell, the protagonist, is forced into participating like really against his will. And so it's a tragedy, but then knowing how it ends, watch it again from sort of the farcical thing, that point of view, and like, okay, well, what's actually going on in this movie? What's really going on in this movie? Because obviously a woman doesn't turn into a giant spider at the end. Like, in like, oh, this is real hard-hitting drama. Women sometimes turn into giant spiders. I mean,
werewolves maybe, but not giant spiders.
I mean, it's interesting that within the first 10 minutes, the movie itself acknowledges different points of view and perspectives of watching it. That's utterly fascinating.
I think that you gotta catch on to like the subtle cues like that, like some of his lectures, and like all the cues I think are there. It's just a matter of picking up on them. But even then, like, I've come up with a theory as to something that's gone on in this film, but I feel like it doesn't answer all the questions, and it doesn't. There's certain things that kind of contradict it, and so I'm not really sure. So,
well, why don't you start with the one that you're comfortable with, sir?
Okay, so I have this sort of idea that maybe a lot of this is in his head, and it's him confronting the two sides of his personality. Like, it's acknowledged that Anthony has been cheating on his wife, and then if you look at the place in which Adam lives, it's very sparse in how it's decorated. I would almost see that as like a love den, like somewhere that he's renting out specifically for the purpose of him taking on a lover. And so his girlfriend is the woman that he's cheating on his wife with. And so like there's these two aspects of his personalities that are almost like not aware of each other. The problem with that is the fact that he doesn't recognize his wife as she like confronts him at his job. Also the confrontation between his girlfriend and Anthony as you know, she notices the ring mark. Well, I guess the ring mark wouldn't be there if that was the case. So there's a lot of things in this theory of mine that I can't seem to reconcile.
There's no single theory that fits everything. You could argue for when she meets him at the university, him not recognizing her, that he's pretending. When she goes to call Anthony and Anthony picks up, it's just as Adam enters the building, she can no longer see him. There's that.
Yeah.
Also, it seems like she knows something is going on because later that night when she confesses that she went to Adam's workplace to spy on him, she says, "What's going on?" And Anthony says to her, "I don't know." And then she looks at him pointedly. She says, "I think you do." Like, she's aware that there is something going on. But at that point in the movie, there was nothing going on between Anthony and Adam. Anthony's plan, it hadn't even started yet or something. So, I mean, that's super, super ambiguous. But it legitimately does look like Adam does not recognize her. Legitimately has no idea who she is and is just kind of making nice small talk. You know, sitting on a park bench between classes. It honestly looks that way.
But then there is still the fact that...
that she didn't realize... it was at that moment that she realized he was missing a ring, not all those other times they had sex. So that's unusual.
That's the thing that kind of has me scratching my head. Unless it was that he wasn't wearing the ring for a long time, and then he started again. But even then, like, there's a lot of things that I can't make the connections. I do actually want to watch the movie again now that I know the ending and now that I've thought about it a lot more. I guess much like yourself, where I just feel like I almost need to watch it a second time to kind of confirm the things that I've thought about.
Yeah. Jessica noticed something that I did not pick up on at all. Adam Bell is a history professor and apparently has been for a while when Anthony is looking into him. He's listed on the university page, and he's not like some... like a Tampa associate professor. He's a full professor at the university. Yet he lives in this sparse, small, dungy dive. Anthony Clare, an actor who's been a background character in 3 films and a handful of commercials, and hasn't been acting in 6 months, lives in a super nice apartment in a gated community. Wouldn't it make more sense if those 2 residences were the other way around?
Okay, so that does lend a little bit more credibility to my theory of Adam's apartment being like the love den.
It does, yeah. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can look at this. One is to kind of take it at almost face value in that they are 2 different people. But the other way is that they're the same person. There's a recurring theme having to do with spiders throughout the whole film. But it's most of it, not all of it, most of it is subtle. Whenever he's traveling along the streets of Toronto, and the film takes place in Toronto, as well as being shot there, there's all these, those lines that buses use, like trolley buses and stuff.
Yeah.
And, they're crisscrossing very much, like, intentionally, like spider's web. And then during the car accident, when the car is flipped and the windshield is shattered, the camera zooms in and the shatter mark is a spider web. One of my theories is that it is all one guy and that the car accident was where his life became fractured. And so that's why they have the same scar, and the scar is from the car accident. Oh. That's my thought. Because
so perhaps... in some ways, it sort of plays out of order.
Yeah. So he had been having an affair with Melanie Laurent, I think the actress's name is.
Yeah, she's best known for theater owner in Inglourious Basterds.
In Inglourious Basterds, that's right. And that his life kind of fractured at that point, and so these are almost kind of like his memories. This doesn't explain everything, though. But, however, it does explain why there's a scene early in the movie when Adam is having a nightmare, and he is dreaming of a naked woman in high heels walking along the roof with a spider face. Adam's character, if you take this movie at face value, Adam's character doesn't know anything about the fetish club at that point. Why is he dreaming about it? The problem is you watch it, and up until a couple points within the movie, it seems linear, and it seems like they're 2 guys. But there's another couple issues as well. Anthony loves blueberries, right? He loves blueberries. He goes on a little stupid rant about organic blueberries to his poor pregnant wife, who looks like she's heard it a million times before, and doesn't give a rat's ass about the stupid goddamn blueberries. Later, you find out Adam hates blueberries. Then when he finally goes to see his mom, in a scene that almost seems like it takes place a little too late, to say, hey, was there a twin? Did I have a twin separated birth? And she says, no, you're the only son I've ever had. She serves him blueberries, and he's just like, I don't like blueberries. She's like, oh, don't be stupid. You've always loved blueberries. And on top of that, he has just told her he thinks there's a duplicate of him out there. But she still says, you have a really nice job. And then she goes on to say, you should stop that stupid side job of being a B-list movie actor. It's not working out for you. It almost seems like it's the same guy and his life is fractured. This, though,
do you think that
there's
there could have been
problems with this theory, though?
Do you think that could have been even a level of brain damage that may have happened with the car accident?
It could have been. It would explain like this horrible anxiety that he seems to have.
Because aspects of your personality that change if you get brain damage. I mean, perhaps that could extend to like whether or not one likes blueberries. You know, like
sure.
You know, and also like. The truth of the matter is, Adam and Anthony do act like very different people.
Mm-hmm. Anthony is predatory. There's a predatory nature about him. And this is exemplified when he's tailing the girlfriend, and he's got that motorcycle helmet. He's so deliberate, and he's so there's this.
He walks with like a real stalkery confidence.
Yeah,
very cautious but determined. You know, actually, you use the term predator, and again brings me back to the giant spider in the room.
Yeah,
where the giant spider backs away as if it's encountered a predator.
Yeah,
and that being kind of a turning point in Adam. Oh, you see, but the thing is, like, how could Adam be the later one if he's turning into Anthony? Again,
there's problems. Yeah, there's problems. There's problems with the theory. Yeah, and especially with the way that the movie is formatted. When I started watching it the second time, I was like, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe they are two different people, just because that seems to make the most sense on a level. But then that has a lot of problems as well, like a lot of problems. Then, of course, it raises the question, well, if that's the case, why is he crying near the end when Adam is crying? Like right near the end of the film. Is he crying because he was forced into pretending to be Anthony and he didn't want to, and he knows what's going on between Anthony and his girlfriend now and he has no control over his life? Or is it because now we're at a crux in the movie because he apologizes to her? Maybe he's finally confronting the moment of the accident within himself, because he keeps cutting back to the accident. Maybe he's finally confronting, that was me, I've done this, and I have really wronged this woman. And he's finally reconciling himself as one person. Mm-hmm. And then that would explain his like, he's slightly different then from that point on. When he finds the key and stuff, he seems way less anxious and stuff.
But also back to his old tricks in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. Because now all of a sudden he's thinking about going to this fetish club, and he does know to an extent about it because the doorman was talking about it, and in a really creepy, slimy way. There was Jessica had read something about it symbolizing or being a metaphor for being trapped in a marriage that you no longer want to be in a part of, which is interesting, and that he can't escape the webbing, no matter where he goes, and that he keeps on falling back towards the spider, which is an interesting thematic idea.
It doesn't necessarily clarify what's going on.
No.
But as far as thematic elements, I think it works. Especially since his wife is pregnant, and sort of like that deepens the obligation to be in it. It's considered so scummy if you leave your wife while she looks like she's about to pop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think it is. But I guess I could see that person feeling like suddenly trapped and caught in a web. Yeah, I never thought of it from that angle.
Yeah, that was interesting. And then it makes even more interesting the fact that your observation that now she's the spider and backing away like he's the predator. Like, now let's imagine now that interpretation of the theme is correct, that she is the spider, he keeps falling back into the spider, back towards the spider in the web. He can't escape the web, but the spider views him as the predator, right? That's interesting. That's interesting. It's less like you're trapped in the spider's web, as in like you're just as much a predator as the spider is. And again, going back to the fetish club, where all these women are crushing spiders.
Oh, you know what? That's a good point. So it's almost as if his feeling trapped has caused him to go off and do things like have an affair or go to these night fetish clubs.
Take a second career that is so at odds with the first one. He's a history prof, but he's also like this third-rate background actor as well, just to have his own life, to do something else, right? Well, and also Adam has a fairly sort of standard Volvo practical car, where Anthony has got that nice motorcycle, super souped up.
Something about very independent and masculine about the motorcycle.
Yeah. It's totally dressed up that way, because, he's dressed up in this super nice leather jacket get up, and the helmet is all cool, and yeah.
So by him acting under these insecurities, essentially he is becoming the more threatening figure and doing the most harm in his marriage than his wife is. It doesn't seem like she contributes whatsoever to the problems.
She might not be. It could be entirely his point of view that she is the issue, when in reality he's the issue.
Which actually kind of lends to the title of the film.
Yeah.
Enemy. There's this saying that your greatest enemy is yourself. Mm-hmm. And I guess that kind of is almost physically materialized in this film, where if he's destroying his own marriage through his own insecurities, then yeah, he's the one who's undoing everything. He is his greatest enemy.
And this speaks to it, because there were points during like I mentioned with the pacing, where Jessica was getting kind of a little bit bored. It was late at night. She has to get up in the morning. She's getting a little bit bored checking Facebook and stuff. But I mean, now she can't stop talking about it at times.
Yes.
That's the interesting part of this movie. I mean, where it's just like, oh, the stuff that I thought was inconsequential at the time. Where they're just yakking or they're just driving or whatever, and I was just like checking my notifications or whatever. Maybe I need to go back and rewatch that. Maybe something else is going on.
There are times where it almost seems like a silent movie because of long silences. A lot of like focusing on like people, like reactions and faces and scenery. And so like it's interesting. Again, I do kind of go back to the idea that film is a language, and I think that so many of the cues as to what's going on in this movie are from the visual aspect of it, the imagery, and so much of it is there's so much implied. Actually, this must have been a really weird screenplay to look at.
Okay.
Just like to actually be able to read into it and actually make it into a movie, it must have been extremely challenging.
Can I also, as an aside, I gotta give props to Jake Gyllenhaal. From an acting standpoint, he's bloody amazing in this film. Mm-hmm. Two very, very different characters, and then to go on a year-ish later and make a movie like Southpaw, like holy cow, he's scary in Southpaw.
Oh, he's huge.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it's kind of an injustice to some degree that he only has like one Oscar nod behind his belt, because I feel like more and more he's taking on these really challenging roles. A lot of people felt that he was really snubbed for Nightcrawler, which I haven't seen yet, but actually want to see it.
I've only heard good things about Nightcrawler.
Again, another one of those sort of arty, more challenging films. I think that this is sort of one of those times where it shows like why he's still in the business, and because like there is a lot of nuance and a lot of again, like because it's so silent a lot of the time, you have to watch his features, you have to watch like his reactions, because they're all spot on and they all are so telling. Mm-hmm. Major props to Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah, especially since he has to take on two different characters, and they have to be the same but also different. So, Whale. Is there? I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about?
There's always lots of stuff to talk about with this movie.
I mean, I think we banged out a lot last hour. So I guess let's get on to would you recommend it, and who would you recommend it to?
I'd recommend it for sure, but I would recommend it film students for one. Actually, I guess anyone with a real passion for the arts, whether it be writing or photography or anything like that, acting.
I didn't even think film students, but that's actually a good point. I do feel like if you are wanting to get into directing, this is a good place to look, because I think that it's very important to study how much your visual storytelling contributes to a movie.
That's just it. Half this movie is atmosphere, and there's a lot to this movie, but the atmosphere is
like stained yellow, and it's grim, and it's moody, and
it's so palpable. And if it was shot any other way, would it work? I don't think so. I think it was shot entirely appropriately, and I think like the music was entirely appropriate for it, and the casting was great. There's that irony behind that the song at the very end, where it almost seems strangely jarring to have kind of like a pop song, not like
I actually don't remember what it was.
Song. Oh, it was just kind of like a stereotypical sort of almost 70s rock, and it contributes to that sort of that jarring notion, and the sort of the life goes on sort of thing,
right? Yeah.
At the end as well. You have to recommend it to somebody who's going to patiently sit and watch it.
Yeah.
Not somebody who just kind of wants to have it on in the background, or is prone to getting up during the movie and doing stuff and then coming back down and staying and watching and getting up, and where it's like you have to sit and watch the movie. So no one you have to cajole into watching it. Somebody who's willing to sit and wait and be patient, because they'll be rewarded, I think.
I'd recommend it seeing it twice.
Yeah.
Once to watch it, to just take it in, and then sit on it, I would say. Mm-hmm. Then sit on it a little while and ponder it a bit. Give it another go. Actually, while you're pondering on it, maybe listen to the Checking the Gate podcast episode of it. and then give it another go, and then see how stimulating the second time is, because that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm gonna take it back and give it another go, and see if there's anything else I can figure out. Because as we've shown the last hour, it can be discussed, and it can be theorized on and pondered on. And if you're the kind of person who likes to get deeper into cinema and will be a more patient viewer, I think that this kind of movie could work really well for you.
Coincidentally, that reminds me a lot of Donnie Darko.
Yeah, actually, I drew some comparisons in my head as well. Like the viewing of it, you watch it once, take some time, think about it, watch it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, Jake Gyllenhaal film, for those not in the know.
That was my introduction to Jake Gyllenhaal, actually.
I thought it was mine, but I realized I had actually seen October Sky beforehand.
I have not seen October Sky.
October Sky is pretty good, but that's almost like his career, though. October Skies is the very cinematic, friendly one that you can expect will bring in a really good, reasonable return. It's inspirational, it's uplifting, based on a true story. Regular sort of typical cinema fare, and then immediately after he does Donnie Darko, the art film. This is kind of his career. This is Jake Gyllenhaal's career,
and you know what? It's working for him.
Yeah,
so. I think he's got the kind of career that a lot of actors wish they had. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Steve and I also co-host the Music A to Z podcast, and you can check us out at musicazpodcast.com. We're on Facebook. We have at Music AZ Podcast is our Twitter.
Yeah, at Music AZ Podcast. Yeah.
Well, Steve, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
No problem.
Hope to have you again soon.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening to the Checking the Gate podcast. We are moving on. I have a Facebook page, Doug J.C. Ferguson, and a Checking the Gate podcast page, and
That's my guy.
That's your guy.
Yeah, cool. Hey, we're almost done.
Almost done.
Can you
go see Andrew for a minute, okay, baby?
Yeah, and then I'll be out there very shortly.
Yeah.
Okay.